So I just want to kind of put it out there. This feels super awkward to do, talking to a camera. There's no one else here in this room, no one here in the house except for my dogs. So if you hear them barking, and I apologize. Uh, there could be a dog walking by, deer, rabbits. I live out in Red Deer, so anything can happen. So I'm Kevin Roteris. I'm the owner of Rotty's Creation, and this is Rotty's Creative Corner. So this is a podcast I thought I'd start where I can discuss different things about hobbies, like collectible cards, different games. We can get into creative businesses, how I got into it, and how different avenues of way people can get into creative businesses, how to be successful in creative businesses, and in the creative field kind of thing. My experience in the film. We'll do whole kinds of crazy things. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say a bunch of times. I'm still getting used to talking to a camera. But as we go, hopefully get a little more better at this. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit about my background. So my background, sorry, I'm looking over here. I have a whiteboard right. I have everything down. So my background, if you want to start way from the beginning, I come from Hamilton, Ontario, steel town. So I grew up very industrial. I went to school for tool and die. I've worked in factories, I worked in the steel factory, Dofasco there. I've worked in assembly lines, warehouses, drove forklift, you name it. I was blue collar raised. I left there I joined the army, and I left and moved out to New Brunswick. That's where I got posted. So I joined the army to get out of Hamilton, and just to kind of get, guys, I needed to get out. All my friends were becoming tradesmen, and there's nothing wrong with people working trades. I have mad respect for them, especially after working trades, especially like my experience in Dofasco. I tell everyone it's probably one of the most depressing jobs I've ever done, mainly because just hearing people's stories was just heartbreaking of like how they gave up everything because their girlfriend got pregnant. So they dropped everything and, their dream and everything, and that's where they ended up. And then there's guys who are like, probably about my age when I knew them, maybe even a few years younger than I was right now, because from working there for so long, they had like black spots in their lungs. There's at Dofasco, there's actually a department called, what is it? That's coke ovens. And I didn't believe it until I worked there. You're actually paid an extra year. I think every 2 years, you're paid an extra year of pension because you're not expected to live as long. And so, I'd come out like black, like covered in oil. And this is stuff that like doesn't dry. So like if you wash your clothes in your washing machine, it's coming. So you had to rent uniforms and everything. And it was just nasty, just coming home and then feeling like a zombie working 12 hours. Constantly switching days to nights. It was horrible. I don't know how people enjoyed it. I had a feeling deep inside it just wasn't for me, and I had to get out. I just couldn't afford anything. I didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to work in film for the longest time. And I remember actually I did a trip to Europe after I left Dofasco. And I remember that's when I kind of started writing a lot. I had a book I started writing like crazy in, especially on train rides. And yeah, so I just started writing, and then all of a sudden I had this idea while I was over there of what if I changed my scripts into video games. And so instead of telling people my story, they can interact with my story. And I thought that's a really cool idea because I've always been a huge gamer. Like I have gaming magazines from way back in the 90s, like back when I was a little kid. Like I think like back in like 1990 when I was 6, I was obsessed with video games my entire life, really. And so I didn't know what to do because I live in Hamilton. There's not creative or work isn't really, it was actually very taboo in my family. Actually, if matter of fact, they did not like me wanting to do anything like that. Their idea of life is get a trade, have a family, and repeat kind of thing. And that's the stage of life. And after working Dofasco for 2 years, I knew that wasn't for me. So I had to get out. And so I joined the Army. I became a combat engineer. I originally signed up as an infantier, believe it or not. But then I did such, I got so high on what was it? My aptitude test. I got such a high score. I think they said I got a near perfect score or something like that. And they're like, we don't want you doing infantry. We want you doing something where you can use your head a little better. And I was just like, I don't know. And then I remember they gave me the book. So I started rummaging through the book. And there's a picture of a guy with the, what do you call it? The metal detector for minesweeping. And I should know the name of it since I actually used one. Yeah, sorry. I'm concentrating too much on trying to keep myself authentic, I guess. Oh, and there they go. Anyways, so I was, going through the book and I saw the picture of a combat engineer. And, he had the mine detector and he had a big explosion happening behind him. And I was like, that. And I'm like, I saw EOD. I'm like, oh, that. I'm like, explosive ordnance disposal. I'm like, yeah, I get to blow stuff up. Yeah. And even the guy who's like tried talking me out of that. He was trying to go, I believe they're trying to get me to go SIGOPS officer. And I was like, you can still go in combat and everything. You still see combat. That was my thing. That was my goal. Was like, I wanted to go see combat. I wanted to experience that. I wanted to serve my country and, and do something. Like I had a lot of aggression. I had a lot of anger when I was younger, which the Army did not really cure at all. Actually, I'd say it made it worse. Yeah, so I joined and I went through basic and everything and I became a combat engineer. I served for about 4 years. I'm not going to get too much into my service time. I served for 4 years. I did get EOD, and so I did become the guy like Liddy in the bomb suit before, this is years ago. Yeah. So I actually wore the bomb suit. Oh, there's one of my dogs, Rocky. You won't be able to see him. Anyways, so after 4 years, I actually left early. I was supposed to do 5 years, but I ended up getting a back injury. It was a really bad herniated disc on my lower lumbar. And the way I didn't have a vehicle at the time. So like I was walking to physio and back and it was just not getting the treatment I wanted. I should have been getting really. And basically because I wasn't able to do, any soldiering stuff. So they threw me basically in an office where I was just rotting away behind a computer. And yeah, I had some fun. Hey, buddy. Yeah, I had some fun. I had my warrant officer was awesome, but once I kind of felt myself rotting away, I was just like, I had to get out. And so ended up getting a bit of an early release. And I went to go and start my own physio and everything. Unfortunately, Veterans Affairs wouldn't cover it. So I actually went I think 5 or 6 years without any physio because I couldn't afford it. But it did become an issue when I was in. So I moved to Vancouver after the military. I should have moved to Ontario for a few months, and then I worked at Future Shop until I waited for my pension to come through. Once that came through, then I used it to fly out to Vancouver with my 2 dogs. I literally 2 dogs in a suitcase is all I had. And I rented a hotel for a week, ended up finding a place. And I decided I wanted to go back to school for designing video games. Veterans Affairs gave me a lump sum, wasn't enough to go back to school. It was enough. I did a semester. I had no idea how I was going to pay for the rest of it. And I ended up having to drop out. I was kind of more edging to drop out because I was like going to school for, so I went to school at the Art Institute of Vancouver for designing video games. That's what I should have begun with. Sorry. ADHD. So I'm a bit all over the place. And you'll see that. Oh, my other dog Nebula's here. Want to say hi to people? There she is. There she is. Anyways, so I went to the Art Institute of Vancouver for a semester. I learned a lot about, like tabletop games, stuff like that. I learned a lot about 3D modeling, coding, and stuff like that. But I'm just not a person who can sit on a computer for like 18 hours a day. It's just not in me. At that time, I had way too much energy where like every 20 minutes I was getting up, walking the hallways, and then coming back. And a lot of teachers were disappointed that I dropped out because they wanted to see where I'd go with it, because they actually really enjoyed the work I did and stuff like that, because I made like a text-based game. And uh, I think like I remember like when we did modeling, like we just learned how to like manipulate its shape, and everyone's just making like this weird, I don't know what shape. And I literally made a rifle, full rifle, just from memory, with my I think it was Maya I was using at the time. Anyways, so yeah, so I had to drop out after a semester because it was like $7,500 every 2 months, which I couldn't afford. Plus living in Vancouver, which is at that time and might still be the most expensive city in Canada. It is insanely expensive, and I had to move like once, maybe sometimes even twice a year, just because I couldn't afford the place. Anyways, once I dropped out and started, money started running out, I had to find a job, and I ended up getting a job. I know sounds like it might not be important, but it kind of is. I got a job at a tent rental place where they paid for my. Sorry, I'm scratching. I'm just fidgeting and stuff. So that they paid for my forklift license to be renewed, and so I drove in there and everything. They ended up shutting down, and because I have my forklift license, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I got like 13 years of experience of driving forklift. And now I have my actual license. So I started applying for forklift license. Little did I know, one of the jobs I applied for was at a company called Holly North, where they actually rented and sold all their special effects gears to basically all the big productions in Canada, the US. We've shipped things off to Italy, like Spain once, we all over the world sometimes, China a lot of times. And and so that's when I got introduced to the film industry. And that was my lead in. I started working my butt off, and I started making friends with a lot of the lead guys. And eventually they invited me on set. And I got invited, going behind, like kind of, honestly, I kind of weaseled my way on to do a job for Avril Lavigne. A good friend of mine who passed away, Neil Sedman. Sorry, I forgot about that. Neil. He was an amazing guy. He was a very good friend of mine, and I met him through Holly North, and that was the first job I ever did for him. Was We Day, where Avril Lavigne was the headliner, and he had to do the ground fog for Avril Lavigne and Chad Kroeger when they do a duet, and then he had to do cryojets for when she did her main set. And so the guys were joking around saying like they're a little worried that he's not going to be able to hit cues and stuff because he's not the most musically inclined person. And that argument, knowing Neil as well as I did, I would agree sometimes. Yeah, he's a character, all right. But anyway, so I kind of like, oh, do you mind if I kind of went over there and helped him out, and I can kind of learn a bit. And they're like, oh, okay, go ahead. Yeah, this is an evening thing. This is your own time. So it's your volunteering thing. So I went over there, and I started putting, my ideas into it. And Neil loved it. Loved that. I was like, hey, I had no problem like crawling on the stage, hide hoses, and figuring out like being like very particular on the angle we put things on. And he loved that. He loved how hard I worked and like how detailed I was. And me and him got along really well, even though we had quite the age, because he was in his 70s when when I knew him. I laugh because there's a time when we did a fireworks show for his birthday. He mainly did fireworks. He did special effects time to time. He actually was the Canadian match for Disney on Ice, so he actually had quite the career. But his main business was fireworks, and I did a lot of fireworks shows for him. And he did. I don't even remember where I was going to go with that. Sorry, I lost train of thought. Anyways, I'm sure it'll come back. So anyways, so I worked. So basically what I was getting at was, so I spent the next 4 years working in special effects on film sets, usually Hallmark movies. I did a few bigger productions, hung around a bunch of big studios. And so I got my taste into it, and I got my experience on sets, commercials and stuff like that, doing fog, and then eventually led up to whole kinds of cool things, building things. Anyways, Unfortunately, I lost a lot of jobs because my back was taking a toll, and I didn't realize what the true symptom, or as a symptom, I guess, the true show of chronic pain. So, so for those who don't know, and just majority of you, I can tell you that if your back is sore, that's not chronic pain. Your back is sore once in a while you pulled your back. That's not chronic pain. Do not ever compare that to someone who has real chronic pain. Chronic pain is when you no longer feel the pain. It's no longer, you're just used to it, and then it becomes a mental game. And that's what became me. Like, I found I was becoming an absolute prick. I was becoming an asshole. I was becoming lazy and moody, and like I was just angry at like constantly, and had no idea why. So I had to like play scenarios and make up scenarios in my head to be angry, and it's almost also a combination, a bit of PTSD and stuff. And so there's a lot of I had a lot of issues going on, and I lost a lot of jobs because of it. I don't know if I'm blacklisted in Vancouver. I'm sure if I went back, a lot of people would welcome me back. But like, I had to get out, and I moved back to Ontario for a few years. Um, I started a business over there. That's when I kind of started getting entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, when I just started coming up with a business plan, and I was just coming up with the idea and putting it together, I made the mistake of telling Veterans Affairs, and they canceled all my everything. And they said we don't basically they don't help people with business, or they don't. Yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna sit there and pass blame. I'm over that. So anyways, I lost my income, and I couldn't pay rent, and I had to move somewhere. So I packed up whatever I could. I think like 2 hours to pack up because I got removed from my home, and I was basically homeless. I moved to Alberta. I was sleeping out of a tent in Banff and wherever, and out of my truck wherever I could find a spot for the first 2 weeks out there, and then eventually I was able to find a place, and a place where I can start healing and figuring out what my next step is. I decided I want to get further back into film, and like I started getting into production company stuff, and and so I started buying camera gear, started buying all this film gear and stuff like that, and became a bit of a film nerd, started learning cinematography and all that. And then, of course, COVID happened. So then after COVID, you know, the film industry slowed down a lot, even though I did work on Under the Banner of Heaven in the union there. And then for special effects, it just seems like there's not a lot of work. And then when where that little bit of work comes in, it's very, very competitive. Like, there's already guys who are very well established out here they're getting the job right away. So once the film industry kind of it seems like it's going to speed up soon, but fingers crossed, hopefully. But yeah, so with everything like that, I had to figure something out. And then I started, just we were starting to kind of build things again and all that. And then I kind of ran into a snag when my landlords at that place, after 3 years of living there, decided they wanted to sell the place and they wanted me out. What? It was a weird, messy thing, but anyways, I ended up having to leave. So I ended up having to put all my tools and everything in storage, and then I put everything else. Basically, I moved into a basement in my friend's house, and yes, all my tools and all my belongings were in a storage unit, besides a few things. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very itchy. As you can see, I'm fiddling with things and grabbing my pants and pinching things. And don't worry, I'm not scratching my nuts or anything or playing with myself. Just hard time. I'm very flinchy, especially when like I'm talking to a camera. Like, it's still really weird to me. Anyways, so I was bored and I needed something to do. That's honestly the idea. And then but one of the ideas I had when I wanted to get into film was I was writing an anthology show. And in this anthology show, I wanted to make a plague doctor as the host of it. And this plague doctor had this sinister background. I came up with this whole background and everything. And we're like, he's up to something, and he introduces every episode. And every episode was about, because I was going to do a podcast about, I actually did a podcast a few episodes, just I didn't like the direction I was going, but I called occult cases, where I was doing about, like, the idea of like Bigfoot and aliens and all the occult stuff and weird stuff like that, and coming from like a practical, I like thought of it behind it kind of thing. And it did actually kind of get a bit popular, but like I said, I was paying some guy to film me in his basement. Then I was editing it. And I found I had very little creative differences or creative input to it. And I don't like, I'm like right now, I know I'm probably brutally killing this, like in a not a good way, but I just didn't want, I don't like reading from a script. I like being a little free and talking about this. And so, anyways, I want to do a plague doctor, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to learn how to work with leather, and so I ended up buying from Tandy's a shoulder, so it's a very small piece of leather. Well, it's good size, enough to make a hat, and I made the Indiana Jones hat, which I actually have right here. This is the Indiana Jones hat. I'm going to show it off a little more detail when I do my podcast, or not my podcast, my episode on working with leather. I'm going to be filming very shortly. But I made this, and my friends that I was staying with were very impressed. And they're like, well, they actually dared me to make a plague doctor mask, not realizing I kind of wanted to already make a plague doctor mask. And so I made one. It's hung up right now, but it's got lights in the eyes and everything. But I made a plague doctor mask. Sorry, I'm talking to the monitor again. So I made the plague doctor mask, and I just found it really easy. I work with my hands, and like, but the funny thing is, like, I found it easy because everyone else like just couldn't understand how I found it easy. I was like, I just naturally, once I can very easily redo what I see in a video, like, and I've been working with my hands for so long that I'm very good. I guess. Anyways, so I started making more and more and more, and they're like, well, why don't you go sell it? And I really didn't want to sell it, but eventually I was like, no, what? Screw it. Let's see what happens. And the idea was I wanted to move to the area of Lacombe. Mainly there's a house over there I had my eye on, and that's why I was staying at their basement, because like while I was saving up for a down payment to buy a house. And this house I was looking at in Lacombe, I was keeping an eye on, so I started doing a market in it over there. I didn't sell anything the first, I think, 3 markets I did there. And then finally the 4th market, someone bought a plague doctor mask, and I was so excited. And I got kind of hooked on that. So then all of a sudden people started buying a bunch of small things. I started making more small things. Started extending my markets to Red Deer. So I started doing a Capstone night market, which I still do. I did another, I'm trying to remember what they called it. My good friend Ashton put together this other market we did, a small one, which, if funny enough, was the smallest market I've ever done, but yet I made the most amount at that market because one of the other vendors just kept on getting her husband to buy everything from off me. So I think he bought like a facehugger mask. He bought like the Pac-Man set. He bought a Sub-Zero mask. He bought so much off me. Oh, a Thing hand he bought off me. And she was just like, I like that. Buy that for me. And he bought it off me. So I'm like, I did really good at those markets. And yeah, and that's, like I said, that's why I'm going to teach a bit more about what mistakes I made, because this year we found we really cracked the code on how to run a successful market. Anyways, so I started selling things, and then for the home market, that's where I met Reese, who I work with right now, works at the store. Me and Reese kind of became friends a bit. He's kind of quiet, as some of you might notice. But then once you kind of get past that and he starts opening up to you, me and him started talking. He was going through a few things with him, with his stuff. And he was wondering, something like, one day he's like, yeah, let's work together. I've worked with a few other people. Don't worry, I just pick my nose. I just scratch right here. I worked with a few people, a few other artists and stuff like that, a few 3D printers. Um, but me and him kind of clicked, even though he's like almost half my age, pretty close. But he brought in Pokemon cards and stickers and collectibles, and like all of a sudden realizing, like I started noticing, like once we have more, we did really well. And so me and him started teaming up at different markets, and we did really well. But like the issue I started seeing was, well, with these expos and these markets, that there is so much space between them that we need something. I need something between it. Because sometimes you're gonna go like almost a full month or a couple weeks between them, and you know that's not enough. Eventually, so anyways, we didn't decide we were gonna open a store. I ended up buying a house in Red Deer. I kind of skipped that part. I apologize. Sorry, ADHD, just skipping ahead a bit, scattered brain. So I bought a house in Red Deer, and that's where I'm right now. This is my basement shop actually. And one day I'll make a tour of the shop and show all the things I have in here once I organize it a bit better and clean it up more. It is quite a mess right now. Apologize about that. But this is kind of like a clean shop. So this bench is where I do my leather work, my foam work, and everything like that. I do my epoxy pours, and when I pour my molds and stuff like that, doing that bench there. Then I have some power tools and electronic stuff back there, and yeah, so I have a little bit of everything in here. And then I use the garage for doing my carpentry and my metal fabricating and things like that. So this has been going on for quite a bit, I think. 26 minutes. All right. Sorry, a little time check. I don't want to go too long. So anyways, so yeah, so so that is my background, is like, so I'm not between the military. I know it. There's probably quite a bit I've left out because I'm doing this off the top of my head. I've gone to school for mechanical engineering. I've gone to school for tool and die, and I've worked in special effects since 2012. So I've learned to work with just about everything, uh, all kinds of different crazy things. I learned engineering. I've learned, yeah, just about a bit about everything. And so all this led to the store we're at, where I kind of get to share my nerdy side. So me and Reese decided we're gonna open a store. I ended up because my back went out, so he was helping me with some markets, and which I could not attend, and I was able to get another lump sum from Veterans Affair, which I used that, and then we also applied for a grant from the Canadian Legacy Project, which are supporting us right now as well. They are a charity group where they help veterans, homeless veterans, veterans with PTSD with dogs and stuff like that. And they also run a entrepreneur program, which I took. I took an entrepreneur boot camp with them back when I was trying to do my film stuff. When I was trying to do I was going to do a production company where I made documentary stuff and film and promotional videos, which isn't the type of filmmaking I want to do. Then this is the type of filmmaking I want to do. I like actual filmmaking, like film. I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so I'm scrambling. So yeah, so we decided to put all my experience and everything and all the stuff we loved into one store, and and after searching around, the most affordable thing we could afford was in Parkland Mall, which is a bit of a dying mall. They're trying to revamp it a bit, and we thought we'd try there because they have a program with us for as a temporary unit, where we pay. It's a very fraction of what we pay at a full time store, but it so kind of gives us a chance to build and see what we see. It gave us. It was like a trial to see if we have a viable business, in my opinion. Yes, it sounds like a gamble, and it was. But yeah, I basically put everything I had into opening the store. Everything, every penny and dollar I had into opening the store. So I was living off of basically dollar store candy and fast food for a couple months, which is why I kind of got a belly a bit, which I'm losing now. But yeah, turned out the store is very successful. Actually, we were very surprised of how successful how fast it grew, especially where we are, and Yeah, because like there's a lot of empty units, so a lot of people don't come to our hall, even our hallway in the mall. So seeing the amount of success we've seen, where we've seen a very substantial growth every month. That being said, we're starting to run out of space now, and the mall does not have a unit big enough for us. We loved having our Pokemon trading tables that we start every Thursday from 2 to 7. Parkland Mall, be there. We loved it, and we actually built a community. We had some fun. We have fun with our regulars and stuff. We actually have regulars, which is crazy. Like to think of, I thought it was crazy enough. Like I have a store that had my name on it. Anyways, so we built the store. I've always, like I said, I'm a big sci-fi nut. So Star Wars, Aliens, anything like that, I'm big time into. To the point where like the Pokemon people kind of laugh at me because like I'll list things that they laugh at me for a lot of things. But yeah, like I'll do say a reference or something from one of those movies, and they have no idea what I'm talking about because they're like most of them are like less than half my age. Oh, my shepherd's here now. Shit, dude, Dookie. Anyways, but yeah, no, we had a good. So we built a good community. We've gotten so many compliments of people saying like, "We love the store. We Red Deer needs something like this," and we're like, "No, what? So we need to try something. We need to have an expansion." So we decided that's where our Kickstarter comes in. We started our Kickstarter because I love being around collectibles. Um, I love being around collectibles because it turns people my age back into children almost. Like you can see in adults' eyes, like they're going back to their childhood. Like I remember seeing that. I remember watching that. I remember watching that. And then, and what's even better is like they get to share that with their kids. And so seeing them with their kids, I thought it was really funny because I make the face hugger mask that the amount of parents where you can see them like grabbing their face, trying to explain to them what a face hugger is. And I was just like, and I mean like some pretty young kids. I just got a kick out of that because like you can see like the parent enjoying like, like this is what I watched when I was a kid, and so it's really cool watching like people being able to share their childhood with their kids. It's kind of a cool moment, and then even like we'll have like parents bring in their kids for buying Pokemon, and they'll sit at our tables and open them. Sorry, I almost thought I wasn't recording. They'll open them and they'll pull a hollow out, and some of them will jump up and down and like run in circles or run over to me and show me. I have no idea what they're showing me. I don't know Pokemon, but I'm slowly learning, but like enjoy watching like people like having fun like that. And so we want to expand on that. There is a gamers cafe out here. I haven't been to it yet, and I'm sure they're a good cafe. I'm not saying like we want to replace them or anything, but we wanted to have we wanted space for people to be able to share games and stuff like that, as well as have a destination where it's an attraction just as much as shopping. And that was what I want to do with Rotty's Creations at the mall, but we find we're just running out of space for that. So like we want to build like lifelike statues for people that, so people can take their pictures with them and stuff like that. Which then led to the idea of, it'd be cool if we built a full size UFO, like a 14, 15-foot UFO that people can like walk up to and touch. And of course, thinking my special effects and engineering side is like, well, what if people can crawl into it? Like, what if there's like, seats that people can sit in, and there's like switches and stuff they can flip on. And this is where the UFO idea became, and the UFO Escape Room started coming to life. And this is us going back and forth. Okay, it's like, okay, like, yeah, so what if, they flip this switch and all of a sudden these lights come on, or they flip this switch and all of a sudden this monitor comes on and like this alien's giving a message. And of course, me thinking like, oh, you know what? Like I went to school for game design. I actually went to school. I learned about visual effects, and I learned, I worked in the field and everything. I'm like, I know these programs. So yeah, so we started thinking, I'm like, before I get deeper into an idea, I have to make sure I can keep up with it. And I know what I need to do in order to get there. if you know what I mean. So like I make this hat. Like I'm not just going to be like, oh, it can't be that hard. I will honestly like watch the video before I order anything. Watch how, like, look at how much material or the cuts and everything, and then plan in my head and everything. And so this UFO, hopefully, I don't know if I explained what I'm talking about or not. This UFO basically, before I got any further, is like, okay, how do I do this? Okay, if I flip this switch, how do I make that come on? How do I make that come on? And so that's why, like, that's why I'm trying to explain this so people understand I'm not over my head with this. And so yeah, so that was the idea, was people can flip the switches and all of a sudden things pop on and stuff like that. And then I'm like, well, I went to school for mechanical engineering. I'm like, I know hydraulics and stuff like that. I'm like, it wouldn't be hard to have something so things closed and they're trapped in the UFO. And now a program kicks on and suddenly they have to figure out scenarios, and they have to figure out switches and stuff and puzzles in order to escape. And now we have an escape room. And it's more of a video game escape room than, it's not going to be like in a typical escape room where, you have to go to this room where you have to pick up a phone, dial a number because you see a black light on that. Some things are going to be like that, but it's going to be almost like a video game. And so, actually, wow, I got pretty well through this already in 36 minutes. All right. So I'm going to build this in chapters so you can skip over. So the UFO build, so that's the description, is it's going to be like a 14-foot UFO. There's going to be a hydraulic door that's going to come down into the staircase where you can crawl into it. There's going to be 4 seats into it. And each seat is going to be slightly different. Now, the animation I made in the Kickstarter video was a quick thing I did just to kind of show a 3D what I'm thinking. But it's going to have, that's what the seats are going to be situated like. And each seat's going to be slightly different because each seat's going to be assigned a job. So we're going to have a pilot, a navigator, a gunner, and then an engineer. So like the engineer is going to solve puzzles as like, like maybe if I deflect shields and stuff like that, and kind of nerdy kind of thing like that. And it's not going to be very confusing. So like someone who's not as nerdy as I am in the UFOs and spacecrafts and stuff like that, and sci-fi and stuff like that, it's not going to be hard for someone who's not as intense as I am in that. But anyways, so each person has a job and they have to all work together in order to solve the problem. And to do that, we are going to be using basically the whole UFO is going to be built around a computer. Underneath the floorboard is going to be where the computer is. That way we can keep fans on it, keep it cooled and everything. Less dust and everything is going to get in there. Easier access to get to if things go wrong. But there's going to be basically a computer in there. And that computer is going to be linked to monitors and linked to, we're probably going to start off with Arduinos just to make sure, once we get everything worked and everything, and then actual microprocessors to do the rest, and that we'll program ourselves and everything. And basically the idea is this computer is going to be attached to different microprocessors and basically microchips and stuff like that. Arduino minis and stuff. So the computer is going to tell them what to do, what the puzzle is. So the puzzle could be, you have to do a sequence in switches. The gunner has to do this or this. There's going to be thousands and thousands. Like, we're still going through them all. We're still in the design process. We wanted to build this for them all, but we'd only be able to build a very small version of this. And we want to build the full version. And so basically each, the idea, so this what's the story behind what's going to happen when you play the game is the door is going to close on you. You're going to be locked in there. And then to your monitors, obviously not in real life, then in the actual scenario, you are going to be lifted out of the store and you're going to be shot in outer space. And this is where we are going to come up with at least 50 different missions. And then each mission is also going to be a bunch of each mission is going to have 50 different puzzles in it. And The way we're going to program it is so it is completely going to be random of which one it selects. Like, it's not going to be so random that it's not going to make sense story wise. You're still going to get a story out of it, but each time you do it, it's going to be different. That's the idea behind it. So, how are we going to do this? So, like I said, it's going to be basically a computer that's going to be built into this UFO. This UFO is going to be somewhat of a steel structure with aluminum siding and everything, lights and everything. Yes, we do have the experience to build it, but it's going to be designed in the actual program itself is going to be done mainly through Unreal engines. So the reason why we want to do Unreal engines because we can actually program so many things. We can build this entire world where we can send off 50 different missions in so many different ways. You know, you're going to travel through a wormhole, and you got to find your. The idea is the end of the mission is you have to find your way back, and when that staircase drops back down, that's you landing back in the store as if nothing happened. That's the idea behind it. So there's going to be programmed through Unreal engines, and which, like I said, is going to be programmed to different microprocessor computers, like the Arduino Mini and stuff like that, which is going to cause the switches and all the different things. There's going to be monitors at each station. So you'll have messages from each thing. Like the gunner, he's going to have a joystick where he's going to have a whole thing where he's going to start shooting things. And then there's going to be a pilot where he's got to steer it. So, you guys aren't, just sitting there getting shot. You're going to have I think it says a navigator. Sorry, there's so many things are happening that, yeah. But yeah, basically there's going to be 4 different units and everything. And that's how it's going to work. I thought I would kind of give like a bit of this to explain how this works, just so our backers know, like, we're not just be like, yeah, we're going to have a UFO escape room. It's going to be fun. Like, no. We have actually thought about this all the way down to the last detail. I just don't want to get too far into it right now because I don't want to make this too long of a video, really. But this is not something out of the skin of my head. Like, this is something we've been thinking about for a long time. This is something that we are capable of building. We have the experience of building. Reese has even been in construction, renovation, stuff like that. I've worked in renovations. I've worked in, my dogs are back. I've worked in not only renovations, I've worked in construction. I've worked in film. I've worked in so many creative works, and I've worked in factories. I've worked in machine shops. I've worked in carpentry studios. I've worked in so many different things. So, and as I said, I also went to school for designing video games. A few years ago, I went to school for for visual effects, where I learned Unreal Engine. I kind of got back into modeling and stuff like that. So we do have the experience of making this. This isn't something that we're just like skimming. This is something that we are very well planning. So we are in the process of making it. Right now, we're just concentrating on Edmonton Expo. It's going to be our next big event that's coming up, especially with a lot of our newer products we're getting, a lot of cool collectibles we've been getting. So I thought I'd explain a bit more of the UFO, but we will be posting more videos of the UFO design and the UFO build, where I will be breaking down drawings. I'll be breaking down the design, the storyline behind it, not giving too much away because, these people, everyone who's watching, I don't want the game to be ruined for you guys. I just want people to know that, like, we're not coming from nowhere. We are coming from a successful business, and we have been successful in our past and everything. So, yeah, find our Kickstarter in the description below, and come check us out at Parkland Mall. Come check us out at Edmonton Expo, and come check us out actually this Friday at Capstone Night Market. Have fun.